blankets. They're so afraid people will think they're showing off. Oh, look at him there. He just wants everyone to see him in the dark. Holding the stop-go sign. Yeah, big show-offs. And this happened when I was about 10 years old. My mother, she made spaghetti bolognese for the family. Not like they do in Italy, of course, but it was her own version of it. And it was a novelty in Ireland in the 70s. Spaghetti bolognese. And she was nervous. She warned us all, don't tell anyone about the spaghetti bolognese. She was so afraid the neighbours would think we were showing off. Oh, look at your Hanlons. Your Hanlons have gone all Italian. Oh, they're big show-offs. Next they'll be throwing tomatoes at each other. Showing affection in public. Painting frescoes in the ceilings of churches. Word got out, we were known as the Mussolini O'Hanlons for the next 2 years. Every time you leave the house, oh, here comes Mussolini. And of course, the person who came up with that name, everyone turned on them. Oh, look at you showing off your knowledge of 20th century dictators. He was known as the historian for the next 2 years. And the person who came up with that name, everyone turned on them. Oh, look at you showing off your ability to come up with ingenious nicknames. She was known as the nicknamer. And the person who came up with that name, this could go on all night, you know. I've got loads of time. No. That's the thing about Irish people, though. Very sarcastic. Have you noticed this? People who aren't from Ireland? Almost everything Irish people say is sarcastic. I don't know, the Italian lady, what's your name? Sonia. Sonia. Do you know about Irish sarcasm? Do you know, like your husband, you probably think he's been sincere all the time. Almost everything that's said is sarcastic. There's some hint of sarcasm in it. I tried to give my wife a compliment there recently. You know, you look quite nice, and she just couldn't accept it. She's there, oh yeah, I'm gorgeous, you know, I'm thinking of entering the Rose of Tralee, you know, and granted, I was being a bit sarcastic myself, but everything that is said, you know, I don't want to give the game away to anyone here who has an Irish partner, but, you know, lovely day, obviously, means the opposite. You know, that's a lovely day, and it isn't really at all. I love you. 90% of the time sarcastic. And of course, misunderstandings arise and someone gets pregnant. The two mismatched people spend the rest of their lives together. And even Irish animals are sarcastic. I mean, you pass a field in Ireland and you hear a sheep going baa. Immediately, the other sheep will stop what they're doing and they'll chime in and they'll go baa, baa, you know, completely taking the piss. That's the input. Whereas you pass a sheep anywhere else in Europe, in Italy, France, Germany, and you hear a sheep going bad, the other sheep will stop and nod in agreement. They're not taking every opportunity to undermine their colleagues. That's the big difference. And I'm trying to change because we need to grow up. I'm trying to lead the way. I was cycling to a funeral there a good few years ago now, and it was a horrible day, horrible filthy day, and I fell off my bike, and I'm lying on the footpath in a big heap, and this lady stopped and she said, "Are you all right? Did you fall off your bike?" And before I could stop myself, I heard myself going, no. I'm just lying down here for a rest. And I just put the bike on top of me to keep warm. It's a lovely day, isn't it? You know, I think I love you. Bah. And now she's my wife. So, yeah. Of course, who am I fooling? Of course, the English, most sarcastic people of all. English pretty much invented sarcasm. Masters of the art. I mean, people often say, like, what did the English ever do for us? Probably don't ask that in England, Ray, but they do in countries colonised by the English. In fact, we talk about nothing else. What did the English ever do for us? Well, you gave us sarcasm. That's about it. And the railways, of course, as well. And the English language, and Shakespeare, and Monty Python, and the Beatles. The list goes on and on and on. In fact, we're very grateful that you colonised us. We are, of course, living in a period of tremendous change, and I'm at an age now where I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the change, navigating the modern world, and you know, not just the big stuff, but the small stuff too. I don't know if you've been back in Britain over Christmas or in Ireland, but honestly, I don't think I've been to a pub or a restaurant in the last 4 years where I haven't been served on a piece of slate. Now, I don't know if you've had that experience. I hope that is not the done thing in Malaysia. I mean, I'm not once have I gone into a restaurant and said, now make sure it comes on a bit of roofing material because I simply won't enjoy it. You probably don't mind, Tony. You're probably making money out of that. But I was actually in one of these gastropubs there just before Christmas, and the waiter said, how would you like your steak? And I said, on a plate, please. I don't want it on a slate or a chopping board or a bathroom tile or whatever your zany presentation policy is this week. I just wanted it on a plate, if that's okay. A big white roundy plate will do. Preferably with a lip on it so the blood doesn't go all over my feckin' trousers again. I don't want it on an old LP cover. That happened once in Camden Town in London. I don't want my food liquidized and poured down my throat by a eunuch. You know, that hasn't happened, but it's only a matter of time. And I don't want my chips in a cup or one of those little mini deep fat fryers that you get beside. I don't want my vegetables in an envelope. I just want everything in the same place. At the same time. Is that too much to ask? Am I being unreasonable here? I was in a cafe there in Somerset just a couple of months ago. I was given a square cup. Have you tried to drink from a square cup? Not one drop of that tea went into my mouth. Went everywhere but my mouth. Some things don't need to change. Plates and cups spring to mind. And Britain's membership of the EU. Can I just say, by the way, I don't really want to get involved in this subject, but on behalf of the EU, can I just say how sorry I am that the English people are leaving? Literally. That's all fine. No, I am very sorry. You'll be a big loss. You're always such great team players. No, honestly, I mean that. I'm not speaking on behalf of the EU here. I'm not representing them. The other thing, so I was in a cocktail bar there just a few months ago, and €19.50 for a gin and tonic. None of you are batting an eyelid. We all work in oil and gas, that's no problem. €19.50 for a gin and tonic. I could not believe my ears. I mean, how could you enjoy that drink on any level whatsoever? Like, no matter how salubrious the surroundings were, no matter how fantastic the company was, you'd be sitting there furious all night, wouldn't you? It's a fucking outrage. You'd be going, for fuck's sake, $19.50 for this. That's just unbelievable. It's a disgrace, is what it is. I mean, God be with the days. Not that long ago, you could get an ordinary gin and tonic in an ordinary glass. Little twist of lemon got the job done, and by all accounts helped to prevent malaria. And now, you go into these cocktail bars, you're given a menu and a tutorial by some fellow with 3 or 4 beards and a curly moustache. Looks like he's just taken a year off from exploring the Congo. And the drink, when it arrives, comes in a big vase. Have you experienced this? You can hardly hold it in 2 hands. Full of chopped herbs and vegetables and all sorts of detritus in there. I'm pretty sure there was a bit of tuna floating around in the bottom of my glass. Looked like Gwyneth Paltrow's lunch. Are we mugs? We just lap this up, we accept it. And we buy the story. Apparently it's premium gin, you know, made from rare botanicals and special berries found only in the esophagus of a dead fawn, and premium tonic as well, and premium ice, I suppose, made from the frozen tears of a feckin' seal. We're mugs. I asked the half man, half beard, I said, come on, why? Why the extortionate price there? And he explained to me, in fairness to him, he said, you see, well, it's not just a drink, it's an experience. Yeah, all of this, the chandeliers and the banquettes and the panpipes and my waistcoat, it's velour. Go ahead, feel it there if you want, you know. All of this, it's not a drink, it's an experience. And I was going, well, thank you very much, now I'm enlightened. And I was on the way home, I tried to explain that to the police officer who breathalyzed me. Well, I wasn't drinking, officer, I just had a few experiences. And while we're here, I want to report a robbery. 1950 for a absolute disgrace. So I can't cope with the changes. And do we really need to name storms, by the way? Now, I know, you get the occasional cyclone possibly in this neck of the woods, but pretty much every gust of wind at home now, every drop of rain is given a name. We had Storm Lorenzo a few weeks ago. Lorenzo. Last year it was Storm Freya. All these stupid, inoffensive names. You can't really take them seriously. You know, maybe if you gave them appropriate evil names or something, you know, like Windy Bastard Boris or something. Hurricane Vladimir, you know. Why don't they name nice weather? And what are you doing at the weekend? Oh, I believe light breeze Trevor is on the way. I might go for a little walk. And they've changed the size of the Toblerones. Did you know this? Without telling anyone, that's the thing. You would expect that from a pharmaceutical company, from Big Pharma, not from a chocolate company. Not from a Swiss chocolate company. Do we have any Swiss people here? No, too sensible to go out to a comedy show. The Swiss are amazing, you know, with their secret tunneling and their chocolate making facilities and their special banking. Who can you rely on if you can't rely on the Swiss people? They've got the Large Hadron Collider, of course, underneath Geneva. You know about this, it's about 30 kilometers long. They collide particles at the speed of light. I mean, you could only have that in somewhere like Switzerland. I mean, you definitely couldn't have a Large Hadron Collider in Ireland. You couldn't even have a small Hadron Collider there, to be honest. The temptation would be just too great. What would happen if I put my hand in there? I threw in a few Maltesers. I don't think you could have the Large Hadron Collider in England either, you know, just for health and safety reasons, you know. And ramblers would demand a right of way. Not saying the English are pedantic, you know, but... no, but like they'd probably discover a secret colony of bats or something down there and they'd insist that the particles go around the bats. Anyway, they changed the size of the Toblerones is my point. And like, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm making a big deal about this, but the box is the same size. This is how sly they were. The box is the same size, but as soon as you open it, you realise something is wrong. There's a bigger gap between the triangles of chocolate. Yeah, between the jutting peaks of deliciousness, some sort of confectionery glaciation has occurred, leaving valleys of emptiness. The company are acting like it's nothing to do with that. It's just erosion. Oh, very odd. Someone pinched somebody there. But I can't cope with the change. And I mean, we all want change. We all crave change. You know, everyone knows Britain wanted change. They got Brexit. You know, America wanted change a few years ago. They got Trump, you know. Whether you like him or not, I mean, there's no question about it. He is literally the biggest liar in the world, in the history of the world. Washington Post are keeping tabs on his lies. It's over 10,000 now. You know, Trump is such a big liar. If he came out tomorrow and admitted he was a lying, racist, misogynist, I don't think I'd believe him. That's messed up. And no, I'm not doing jokes about Trump tonight. It's beyond parody at this stage, of course, and we don't want to be wasting our time. I certainly don't want to make jokes about his hair. That's actually the least offensive part of him, the hair, because it's not actually his. As you well know, it's a lovely piece of fabric woven by the worms that live inside his skull. And it grows out through that little hole that was drilled in his skull when he was a child, that his father used as a urinal. You know that. So, condoms, they're useless, aren't they? They're useless and they're ineffective and they burst. And your stomach just can't cope with the sudden impact of 2 kilos of cocaine. Little drug smuggling reference for you there. Are you allowed to do that in Malaysia? By the way, the best way to smuggle drugs into a country is to place them carefully in a dog's arse. Not your own. Many people make that mistake. Just shove them up a dog's bottom like that. Because if the sniffer dogs suspect anything at the airport, the officials will think they're just being frisky. So it's foolproof. Unless, of course, your dog wears sunglasses and sweats a lot. That would give it all away. Yeah. So I'm a parent now. I'm an embarrassment to my children. I keep getting into these embarrassing situations. I was on the tube there not so long ago in London. And this lady got on, and I offered her my seat, and she sat down, and I started talking to her. She didn't like that, but I'd just given her my seat. So the least you could do is have a bit of a chat. And I said to her something I probably shouldn't have said. I said, "When are you due?" Yeah, she looked at me with horror. I realised my mistake. She wasn't actually pregnant at all. But quick as a flash, I covered my tracks. I said, "When are you due another snack?" So So I managed to dig myself out of that hole. So if you ever find yourself in that position, feel free to use my words. That's a little gift to you. Basically, the rule of thumb there is never ever assume that a woman is pregnant until you actually see the baby's head emerging from the loins. But I've got teenagers now. Anyone got teenagers? Yeah, I know, it's exhausting, isn't it? I honestly thought it would get easier as they get older, but no. No, every day you're dealing with some unforeseen crisis, you know. What the fuck was that all about? Every night, myself and my wife, we cling on to each other for dear life. You know, what are we going to do now? Is there a helpline? It's like some zombie disaster movie. We're safe till the morning, you know. You can hear them prowling around outside looking for food. And you're so aware of your own uselessness as a parent, your own hypocrisy. Lecturing the teenagers about the perils of alcohol and the standards expected in this house while you're actively uncorking the second bottle of wine. Like, what chance did my kids have? Spend their whole lives watching their parents squabbling over who's got the bigger glass. Fighting to the death over every last drop of wine. And, you know, they're always on their phone and my wife is there, go on, say something to him, get him off his phone. And of course, my son, who's 17, very quickly pointed out that I spend more time on my phone than anyone else in the house. Just by looking at an app. He was able to tell us all that. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not on social media. There was one day last week, I think I checked the weather about 15 times. I wasn't going anywhere that day. I don't have crops to keep an eye on or anything. I have no idea what's going on. And trying to tell the kids that we didn't have mobile phones growing up. They just can't believe it. You know, we spent a good part of every day just looking at our hands. It was boring. You have to use your imagination, conjure up your own pornographic images. Oh, she's a lovely girl. Lovely eyes. Oh, I had to have the talk with my son about pornography. As a parent, you'd be quite worried, wouldn't you, these days, with the proliferation of the porn and the potential harm and the widespread acceptance of it worldwide. You know, and I was trying to tell my son, like, we didn't have access to porn 24 hours a day, online, morning, noon and night at the push of a button. You know, I hope it didn't sound like I was jealous. That wasn't my intention. I'm pretty sure there was only one pornographic magazine in the whole country. When I was growing up, it was a thing of legend. Did you hear about the dirty magazine? But of course you couldn't imagine what was inside. But eventually it came your way. It was your turn. A friend of mine's brother, Mickey McMahon, he got his hands on it and he was going to show it to us. And we were so excited. We were very nervous as well. Like, I didn't know what to do with myself. I actually put on a tie. Yeah. Cancelled all my football appointments and poured the aftershave down my throat. I mean, it was such an anticlimax. You couldn't even see the dirty pictures through the varnish of old jizz. Oh, you weren't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to say it either. I kind of wish I didn't now, but... And I mean, like, my son is so much more mature than I was at his age, you know. I'm sure there's nothing I can tell him about the subject that he doesn't already know, and he's so much more comfortable around women than I was growing up. Like, I was terrified of girls when I was growing up. I remember the first time this hand here, that one, yeah, was allowed to travel up the inside of a girl's jumper. I mean, her jumper was inside out at the time. It was hanging up inside the wardrobe. But beggars can't be choosers. But people are so easily offended nowadays. That's what I find. Like, people are permanently outraged. I was holding a door open for someone the other day. I was accused of being sexist. How do you like that? Thanks very much, but that's a bit sexist. I'm going, well, I didn't know you were a woman. Which is true, I didn't know. You know, I don't look at the people I'm holding the doors open for. You know, it's me who should have been offended. Like, what was she implying? That I was being sexist or patronising or what? I don't know. You know, if she only knew my interest in population flow through buildings, it's a genuine passion of mine. We need to get a sense of proportion. If I stood in front of the door and said, no, sorry, you can't come in here, you should be at home making sandwiches. I mean, that's sexist. Not everything can be reduced to gender politics. This was mainly about hinges, preserving hinges. You know, the less times you open and close the door during the day, the longer the hinges are going to last. Why don't people know that? Why don't women know that? Well, that is sexist, but I was only saying it to illustrate my point. I don't know what to tell my kids now. When they were younger, I used to play Connect Four with the children. It's a great game of strategy. You might be familiar with it. The Connect Four. And I used to let them win, thinking this would help their confidence in life. But oh no, it just became very objectionable, saying, oh, Daddy, you lost again, you're just a big loser. Daddy is a loser. And I was thinking to myself, if they think their father is such a completely useless tosser, this could affect their confidence in a negative way in the future. So I started winning again at the Connect Four, and it felt very good. But then they became really patronising, saying, oh, Daddy, you won, well done, aren't you a great daddy? Then I realised those little feckers are letting me win. Didn't do my confidence one little bit of good. So you think shampoo would be more eye-friendly, wouldn't you? When you think of the distance between your eyes and your hair, what is it, an inch or 2 inches? Maybe a foot in your case now. Yet they give you this poison, it's unbelievable. I got shampoo in my eye this morning. I was in the shower at the time, I wasn't just playing with the bottle. Why do I feel the need to explain that? And the warnings on the shampoo bottles: avoid contact with the eyes. How are you supposed to do that? They should give you a little leaflet with it or something. Unless you stand on your head or, or put little gutters onto your forehead to sluice away the sudsy water. Stupid signs. I've never understood the appeal of carrot cake. Carrot in a cake. It's one of the great mysteries of life. Very popular delicacy in Britain especially, and in Ireland. People love it. There are 40 types of cake available, but some people choose carrot cake. Cake is supposed to be a treat. It's your birthday, you have a slice of cake. You're sad, you console yourself with cake. Whereas a carrot is something you stick in a snowman's face. You might, at a push, hollow it out and make a hash pipe, but that's about it. But yet some people choose carrot cake over ordinary cake. What's the problem? Carrot is not a cake ingredient, but I think I've worked out the reason finally, once and for all. If you've ever wondered, it's cake for people who love cake but feel bad about eating it. It's cake for guilty people. Yes, it's Catholic cake. You're in the shop, you're thinking, will I have a slice of the Black Forest Gâteau or the creamy, delicious sponge cake? No, I'm a bad person for even thinking about having cake. I'll just have a slice of the carrot cake, the horrible cake. And hopefully I won't enjoy it, and then I won't feel so bad for eating it. I love the cake with the root vegetables in it. Hopefully it'll make me sick, And it's full of fibre, and the fibre is good for me, and it'll help me to excrete it really quickly before it gives me any pleasure whatsoever. I probably didn't have to do the action there. Work that out for yourself. I might as well stab the fork in me eye as well, because I'm such a greedy bastard, Catholics are very well-adjusted people. I don't know if you know any. I'm not a religious person, but I was brought up in that tradition. And people often ask me, do I suffer from the so-called Catholic guilt? There's a choice in the matter. Oh no, I won't bother with the guilt, thanks very much. I'll just have the fear, that'll be grand. And people often ask me to describe this guilt. And I believe it is a real thing. I think as a Catholic person, you're born with a little jockey on your back. He's there all the time. He's invisible, but he's there. From the day you're born to the day you die, straddling your neck and holding on to your hair and whispering in your ear, oh Jesus, I wouldn't do that if I was you. It sounds exactly like that. Oh, you're for it now. Oh, stop it. Oh, stop it. Walk away. You dirty bastard. And this is just because you're eating crisps or something, or trying on your wife's bra. I mean, it's so unfair. Other nationalities don't have the guilt. The English don't have it. I envy the English all my life. They don't have this burden of guilt. I mean, granted, the English are very apologetic, which is to their credit. They say sorry a lot. I actually came across a survey. The average English person, man or woman, says sorry 2 million times in his or her life. Now, it's still not enough, but it's a start. Sorry, Ray. Others. It's a joke. The only people more apologetic than the English are, in fact, the Irish. Obviously, most of the expat community, you know each other, and you've encountered Irish people. And a lot of sentences will begin with the word sorry in Ireland. You know, for example, like when you go into a restaurant as an Irish person, your first instinct is to go, sorry, would you have a table? You know, and you can spot Irish people with their apologetic walk, like, sorry, just hoping nothing in the way here, oh God, like, where do I go? And even if you're annoyed with someone, you go, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to apologise. This happened to me when I was about 18. I was on a bus. When I was mugged on the bus, sitting upstairs in a double-decker bus, minding my own business. 18 years old, this man gets on the bus, he sits beside me. And there's all these empty seats, but he sits in beside me, so, you know, you just know, like, you're in trouble. And about 5 minutes later, he pulls out a knife, and he demands all my money, and I gave him whatever I had. And then I heard myself apologising to him. I said, sorry, I've only got a fiver. And then, get this, he apologised to me. Really, he said, I'm sorry I had to do that, but I have a bit of a drug problem. And I went, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It was a very moving experience. And we're still in touch. Only in Ireland. The only time you wouldn't be tempted to apologise, no matter where you come from, is when you actually have done something wrong. Then it's hard, isn't it? Hard to admit you're wrong. If you're a man, or if you're a woman, especially. And it's not just enough to say sorry, you've got to look sorry. And you've got to act sorry. And above all, it's very important, you've got to know what you're sorry for, which is easier said than done. I was having a bit of a row with my wife, and it was dragging on for a day or two. And eventually I decided to be the bigger person and say sorry, bite the bullet and just say sorry, even though I had done nothing wrong. And she caught me on the hop. She said, why? Why are you sorry? What for? Suddenly I'm on the back foot now. I'm going, well, I'm sorry for what I said. She's going, well, what exactly did you say? And of course, I couldn't remember exactly what I said. You don't, do you, in the heat of the battle? And so I found myself guessing things that I might have said. It was a very dangerous game. You know, I'm sorry about the whole Ozzy Osbourne thing. She's going, what Ozzy Osbourne thing? I'm going, well, you don't look a bit like him. She's going, when did you say that? I'm panicking like, oh no, I didn't say that, I didn't even think it. There's loads of people you don't look like, he's just the main one. But other nationalities don't have the guilt. You know, you feel bad then for days, you know, oh, you shouldn't have said that. The jockey is whispering in your ear, oh, you shouldn't have said that about Ozzy. You know. But other cultures don't see that. I mean, you hear about Jewish guilt, I guess, and I don't know about Muslims. I don't know about Muslim guilt. Is that a thing? Everyone's gone really quiet. Don't mention the Muslims. No, but I guess it is a kind of a thing. Like, I actually heard this, I read this in the paper about 2 years ago. A Muslim scholar in Istanbul, he said that masturbation causes your hands to become pregnant. I hope someone else read that. I'm not making it up, I promise. And I mean, I don't know if it's true. Like, if it is, I've been it all wrong. But I'm glad he said it, because, you know, Catholicism usually has the monopoly on that sort of shite, you know. And I have to say, if I was a young Muslim boy, and I'm not, and I never was, but if I was, I wouldn't be put out by that pronouncement. I mean, you know, pregnant hands, what's the problem? I mean, you know, they'd be a bit tired and a bit swollen and grumpy from time to time. But eventually you would imagine that, you know, if you follow the logic through to the end, they're going to give birth. Presumably to other hands. You're just going to have an extra pair of hands. You know, you'll be able to pray and eat your dinner and play FIFA on the PlayStation and masturbate all at the same time. That's a win-win situation. When I was growing up, we were told our hands would fall off and our dicks would fall off and we'd go blind. I mean, it didn't stop us, but we were very worried. Pregnant hands, that's not a deterrent at all. That's an encouragement. Especially if you're a thief in one of the more fundamentalist countries. No. Yeah. We live in very anxious times, don't we? I wish Trump didn't do that last week. It's fucking very nervous now. I've actually become a nervous flyer myself. I'm one of these people, I clap when the plane lands. I used to do that, but I do now. I'm just so happy to be alive and able to get Wi-Fi again, you know. I know it's stupid, but I was going to Marrakesh a couple of years ago with my wife, and we were going off to celebrate her wedding anniversary, and I did something I'd never done before, but a week before I flew, I went to the doctor, and I got some anxiety medication. I don't even believe in that stuff, and I've never wanted to take it or anything, but I've just become a little bit nervous now as I get older, in the air. So I got the tablets, and I made the mistake of reading the leaflet that comes with the tablets after I took them. Big mistake. I actually brought the leaflet along tonight because I didn't think you'd believe me. And I'm just going to read out a couple of the side effects here because I was actually shocked, to be honest with you. So, side effects may include nausea, loss of appetite, ejaculation failure, and anal bleeding, okay? They're the first 4 side effects of the anxiety medication. Yes, you would be quite nauseous, wouldn't you? If your arse started to bleed after taking a few tablets. That's literally all I could think about for the next few days. What if my arse bleeds on the bus, you know? Or at the parent-teacher meeting that was happening on Tuesday. Then it goes on. If you experience unusual behaviour or thoughts of suicide, please discontinue taking the medicine. You're thinking, are people still honestly thinking that this is an option? I think I should have just had a bath and stuck on Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells or something. But this is the bit I like, and this is really why I brought it along. So, and I'm not making this up. So, anxiety is one of the side effects of the anxiety medication. Like, you couldn't make it up, you know. I was thinking, is this fiction? Like, who wrote this? Stephen King? I mean, it'd be like someone giving you a bandage, saying, be careful with that bandage, it's very sharp, it might cut you. You know? And then finally, to wrap it up, side effects may also include stroke, coma, or death. Death is one of the side effects of the anxiety medication. I mean, if you were anxious before taking it, can you imagine how anxious you'd be after taking it? Stuff is lethal. They should be given it to ISIS, not to fucking Egypt to clap when the plane lands. But that's the thing, you know, we live in anxious times, and I suppose one of the big causes of anxiety is the lack of sleep. Humans don't get enough sleep. We're told this constantly. We need 8 hours. But what normal person in a normal society can get 8 hours sleep a night with all the nonsense and the stimulation and everything that's going on out there? It's impossible. I definitely don't get enough sleep, but that's my own fault. Because I just love staying up late. It's great, isn't it? My wife would be there in the evening. I'm going on up now, and I go, yeah, I'll be up in a minute. I just have something to finish. And I've nothing to finish. I haven't even started anything. I just want to stay up late and eat crisps. But luckily we've all these experts on the radio, day in, day out, radio, in the papers, online, everyone, you know, these experts with their tips on how to get to sleep. It's a real industry. Ridiculous tips like no coffee after midday. That's a popular one. Like, what if you have a job? You know, what if you're contractually obliged to stay awake at work? But you deprive yourself of coffee. Like, how are you going to function after your big Subway sandwich? You know. And I read recently, coffee's actually good for you. Of course it is. After years of it being bad for you, now coffee's good. 3 or 4 cups a day, absolutely grand. According to the latest research, men should actively go in search of coffee. I should be delighted about this, but I'm not. Thinking of all the coffee I denied myself over the years when it was bad for you. Like, I'm actually drinking 15 cups a day now. It's making me sick. Making up for lost time. And fat is good for you, haven't been bad for you for years now. You can't believe anything anyone says. Fat is great for you now, and sugar will be back in fashion before you know it, and who knows, even asbestos might have it today again. No coffee after midday. Did you ever hear such nonsense? And no napping during the day, that's another one put forward seriously by these sleep experts. No napping. I couldn't survive without me naps. You'd think it'd be one or the other, but not both. No coffee, no napping, no alcohol before bed. When exactly are you supposed to drink your alcohol? First thing in the morning on the school run? I mean, seriously? No coffee, no napping, no alcohol. All the pleasures of life denied to us by the sleep Nazis. Like, what's the point of being awake if you spend all your day preparing to go to sleep? It doesn't make any sense. You know, sleep is great. I love it, don't get me wrong, but it's not the be-all and end-all. You know, you never read in anyone's gravestone, he was a great sleeper. You know? You need to have a life. This is one I heard on the radio just before I left last week. Hide your clock. Serious tip by a sleep expert. Hide your clock. Like, you're still going to wake up during the night, and you're going to want to know what time it is, but you've hidden your clock. So you're going to have to get out of bed and go and look for your clock. It could take hours, depending on how tired you were when you hid your clock. Last time I did that, I forgot what I was looking for. I picked up a lamp. I'm getting old. Spent a good part of the summer working on my bucket list, you know, trying to think of things to do before it's too late. I'll be honest with you, I had to tear up the first attempt at the bucket list. It was just too negative. It's just a list of people I wanted to kill. Not really in the spirit of the exercise. I think that whole bucket list concept has been devalued. You know, everyone's at it now. It used to be just for older people who weren't well, you know, people who were literally about to kick the bucket. That's where the term comes from. But now everyone's at it. It's free for all. My nieces and nephews traveling the world at will. You know, everything is so available now and so accessible. People are going to more exciting locations and on more exotic adventures and chasing bigger and better thrills. You know, it all starts when you're a child on the swings. Push me faster, Daddy, push me higher. You know, before you know it, you're on heroin. Like, this is just human nature. It's also competitive and everything, and people boasting about their holidays, their fancy holidays. Yeah, and Instagrammable. And I'm actually working on an alternative to a bucket list. It's a list of things I've no intention of ever doing. Yeah, it's cheaper, and it's more achievable, I find. It's more of a bucket list. And there's great satisfaction in ticking items off the list as you don't do them. You know, run a marathon. Fuck it, I don't think I will. I think people just need to act their age is what I'm saying, basically. You know, you see a lot of men now, particularly in their 40s and 50s, wearing skinny jeans. You know, who told them that was a good idea? The skinny jeans and the pot belly, that is not a good look. Humpty Dumpty's not one of the world's great fashion icons. By all means, wear the skinny jeans under your normal trousers. And you won't look cool, but you'll feel cool. Of course, that's all that matters. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of friends now as well, people around my age, you know, listening to contemporary music, trying to stay in touch with contemporary music. It's a bit pathetic, to be honest with you. I have one friend in particular. Did you hear the latest Stormzy album? No, of course I didn't. It's none of my business. I have one friend, he sits across from me in the coffee shop, quoting lyrics by Stormzy. No, I was 14 in the hood with the gangsters. You can't be a dickhead at my hood or you get bantered. I'm going, you're 47, for fuck's sake. You're a white man, you're an estate agent. Did you ever grow up? Unless Stormzy is singing about bladder problems, you know, or fantasizing about running away with the Pilates instructor. You get a lot of middle-aged people now backpacking around the world, trying to recapture the lost youth. You see them with the big hiking boots and the backpack. Just go on a cruise, for fuck's sake. You know you want to. You deserve it. Treat yourself. Unless the backpack has wheels and contains loads of medicine, you're fooling yourself. By all means, go backpacking around the ship if that makes you feel any better. Wear the same underpants for 3 weeks. You get the full experience. We need to cop on and act our age. You know? A lot of people I know now, my neighbours in the area of Dublin that I live in, they go cycling on a Sunday morning. These are people who should know better. Men and women of a certain age, you know, normal people with high blood pressure. They go cycling for 50 kilometres, and then you won't believe it, they cycle home again. That's literally 100 kilometres in a row. Covered from head to toe in the lycra, up mountains, down valleys, as if the lycra makes them invisible. It's like some sort of invisibility club. No, every undulation, every Malteser you ever ate is featured prominently in the lycra. I tell you, I miss the certainties of childhood. That's what I miss most. You know, when you're young, everything was so simple. We were told God created the world in 6 days. God was a great thing when you were young. It was ubiquitous and all-powerful, and people often ask me, is there a God? I wish they wouldn't, but they do. But I happen to know the answer, which I'm going to tell you. There is a God. and he is a delusion. Now, and I'm not trying to mess you around or sit in the fence or be vague. God absolutely exists, but only in the imagination. And in flowers, of course, as well. And what's the problem there? Some of the best ideas we have exist only in the mind. You know, like democracy, for example, and unicorns. And like people scoff at religious people. You know, they laugh at them saying, oh, you're so silly, you talk to an imaginary being. Big deal. What's the problem there? Some of the best nights of my life have been spent in the company of imaginary beings. Kissing them and licking them, and you know. Have you tried discussing your problems with a real person? Seriously? Hiya, Jerry. Oh, I'm suffering from low self-esteem. Oh, that's terrible. I'll call you back. I'm cooking some fish fingers. You know, people are busy. They've got their own shit to deal with. At least God listens, depending on how well you've imagined him. It's no brainer, really. You know, but when we were kids, we were told God was brilliant. We were told he created the world in 6 days, and we all thought, wow, fair play. But now in hindsight, it just seems a little hasty, doesn't it? Behaving like a dodgy property developer in KL, you know. Maybe if he took a little more time, he could have done something about nettles, you know, or the French. But it was snagless. But everything was simple when you were a kid. We were told, you know, that the world was round. There were 9 planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and the other ones. And you got your dinner in the middle of the day, and there was a God, and he was a good God, and he loved you. But eventually, every child realizes life is just a series of disappointments. And of course, the first big disappointment in a child's life is when you find out that Santa Claus doesn't exist. I refused to believe it for a long time. It wasn't until I had kids myself and I had to buy the fucking presents. I thought, there is no Santa. I'm Santa. And then it's one kick in the guts after another. No Santa, no tooth fairy. I learned the hard way. You know, I was rummaging around in my father's wardrobe. I found his wand and his tutu. So. No God, no tooth fairy. You know, and who knows? Like, but I consoled myself. At least I had my best friend Eamon, my closest confidant. But you know what's coming? I discovered that Eamon is an imaginary friend. Of course he is. And I'll never forget my brother Frank telling me with great relish that Eamon didn't exist, that he was just a figment of my imagination. And I was devastated. I'm getting emotional thinking about it now. I went crying to my mother, and she put her arms around me and she said, you know what, it's true. And you know who else isn't real? Your brother Frank. I never got over the loss of my imaginary brother Frank, I'll tell you that. So ladies and gentlemen, you've been a delightful audience to play to. It's been a pleasure coming over here to KL. You know, and thank you for coming out tonight and facing that traffic out there and braving the elements, and to come here tonight. You didn't have to come. I am conscious of that, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. I had to come. I had no choice under contract, but I, you know, I'm not qualified to do anything else, to be honest with you. I mean, this is what I do, and I know some of you are probably thinking I'm not even qualified to do this. That's fine. I'm rubbish with my hands. This hand especially is a shit hand. Look at it. It's a really crap hand.
Pregnant hand.
You know, don't expect you to know that, but it is. Trust me, you have to take my word for it. Like I can't even. That's why I have to hold it with this. Its only regular job is actually to cut the fingernails on my right hand. I can't even do that properly. Like, I've actually tried cutting the nails on my right hand with my right hand, and I've done a better job. That's none of your business. But so no one takes me seriously. Of course not. That's fine. You know, my sister arrived around to my house there at Christmas with my so-called Christmas present. Came in an envelope. There was me thinking it might be a book voucher. I would have been delighted with that, but it wasn't. It was a certificate saying I was now the proud owner of a pear tree in Peru. How do you like that? It'd be great if I liked pears, which I don't. It'd be great if the pear tree was in Dublin and I could use it for firewood. You know, the pear tree was in Peru. So I contacted my solicitor and he said, I think you should come with me. And we flew to Peru. I know it's an overreaction, but you have to stand your ground. And we discovered the pear tree was in fact, it wasn't for me at all. It was for a Peruvian peasant family. Clearly, you know, which is fine. And I'm delighted for them. And I hope it bears fruit for many years. But I wasn't entitled to a single pear from the tree. I wasn't allowed to climb it or sit under the shade or anything. In fact, the man said he'd call the police if I didn't get down off the tree. Now, my question is a simple one. I don't mean to be facetious, but how can that be construed as a present for me? You know, the Peruvian family are clearly getting pleasure out of it. I'm delighted for them, trust me. My sister is obviously getting pleasure out of it. She's clearly given to charity, and I approve of giving to charity. Of course I do, but not at the expense of your brother's Christmas present. She can give to charity any day of her life for all I care. I just want a feckin' present. Is that so wrong? Just a little token of her affection for me, not a token of how great she is. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm banging on about this. Anyway, I took great pleasure in giving my sister her present. It was a photograph of me handing over a brand new juice maker to a gypsy woman at the front door. But I'm not a fool. I hate being treated like a fool. I was in Marrakesh that time with my wife, and she wanted to go haggling at the bazaar. That's her idea of fun. Haggling. Now, it's not my idea of fun, I'll be honest with you. When I go shopping, I want certainty. I want a receipt and a copy of the returns policy. I went along for the crack, though, to amuse my wife, and went along there, and I tried to join in, be positive, and I said, how much is the hat? And the man said to me, his opening remark, I hope this doesn't sound like lazy stereotyping, that is certainly not the intention. I'm just going to quote the man verbatim. He said, hello, handsome man, what's your name? Matt Damon. You don't get that in Marks and Spencer's, do you? Now, obviously he's taking the piss. This is just his shtick, and my wife thought he was hilarious, and she was enjoying my discomfort and being having the piss taken out of me by the man, by the trader. She wasn't laughing for long though, when he turned to her and he said, hello, handsome man, what's your name? Ozzy Osbourne. Anyway, she doesn't look like Ozzy Osbourne, that's unfair, but it's a true story. Except in a certain light, she came back from the hairdressers one day and she was wearing big glasses and she dyed her hair black and she was a bit unsteady on her feet. I just got a bit of a shock. I thought, oh shit, Ozzy's in the house, Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, the show was over 5 minutes ago. I was just told to keep talking till you go. Anyway, you've been a lovely audience. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good night. Cheers.